Hey guys, so this is weird. Another random favorite spot of mine is I sit in the kitchen on the floor. So I'm just gonna sit in the kitchen on the floor because A, it stops Thor and Ruby from barking while I record this, and B, I like it. So I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna read, and we'll keep reading The Wild Robot. So last time I asked you all about Roz's character traits, like she helped Thorn even though Thorn tried to, attack her. So what does that say about who she is? And a lot of you said that she is either kind or brave, which are definitely true. And I also think that Roz is selfless. So the opposite of selfish. Selfish means you just care about yourself. Selfless means you care about everybody. So she cared about Thorn even if Thorn didn't treat her right. She kind of thought better of it and still did the right thing. So I agree with you guys, and I would add selfless to our character traits for Roz. So we're going to keep going in The Wild Robot and read what happens after the big fight. So here we go. This is the spot right here. All right. Chapter 47, The Parade. Does it hurt? Brightbill touched the smooth surface where his mother's foot used to be. No, it doesn't hurt, said Roz, but it'll be difficult for me to walk. The bears huddled behind the gosling and stared at the robot's stump of a leg. Nobody understood how a foot could pop off like that, or how Roz could remain calm. Roz, I'm sorry my cubs attacked you, said Mother Bear. Sometimes they're completely out of control. It is okay. You know how they are at this age. I can't thank you enough for saving Thorn. I promise my cubs will never bother you again. Isn't that right? Yes, Mother, said Nettle and Thorn together. The robot tried to walk. She bobbed up and down on her uneven legs, which worked well enough on the flat surface of the cliff top. But once she entered the forest, her problem became clear. The smooth stump had no grip, and it slipped around the forest floor. So Roz tried hopping on her one good foot. She took a few crunching hops and then climbed into a tree trunk. A few more hops, and she crashed into the undergrowth. I'm really sorry I broke off your foot, said Thorn, as he helped the robot up from the weeds. I forgive you, said Roz. Whether she was capable of true forgiveness is anybody's guess. But they were nice words, and Thorn felt better when he heard them. It looks like I will have to crawl home, said Roz. Nonsense, said Mother Bear. I have a better idea. Mother Bear lay flat on the ground while her cubs boosted Roz onto her back. Then Brightbill fluttered onto Roz's broad shoulders, and when they were both safely aboard, the group set off through the forest. The robot was heavy, but she was in no trouble for the giant animal. Mother Bear strolled along as if it were perfectly normal for a robot to be riding on her back. They made quite a grand procession, and all walking together like that. And the procession became even grander as deer, raccoon, birds, and all other animals joined in. Everyone wanted to see the mother robot riding the mother bear. The group wound its way past ancient trees and over rolling meadows and through babbling streams, collecting more and more animals as they went. It was the grandest parade of wildlife anyone had ever seen, and leading the way was our robot, Roz. So here's their big parade. But the parade couldn't last forever. As the sun went down, the other animals began drifting away, one by one, and when the parade finally arrived at the nest, only the original members remained. Here we are, said Mother Bear, helping Roz down into the garden. Now, wasn't that better than crawling all the way home? Oh, yes, that was wonderful, said the robot. I cannot imagine a better ending to this day. Thank you very much. Yeah, that was amazing, squeaked the gosling. My friends won't believe me when I tell them I rode across the island on a bear's back. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, Mother Bear smiled. It's the least I could do after all the trouble these two caused. Her smile became a frown, and she glared at her cubs, who suddenly took great interest in a pebble on the ground. It was late, and it had been a long, difficult day for everyone. So the bears said goodbye and headed back to their cave. Brightbill and Roz stood in the garden and watched their new friends lumber away. And then the gosling said, Mama, do you think you'll ever walk again? I'm not sure, said the robot, but I know who to ask for help. Now, go get ready for bed." And I'm sure you guys are thinking, who is she going to ask for help? Who builds stuff that we've met before? Chapter 48, The New Foot. Mr. Beaver squinted at Roz's stump. "I've never built a foot before." He stroked his whiskers and muttered to himself, "There are really 3 problems we need to solve. The foot needs to grip the ground, and it needs to be durable." Durable means that it needs to last, right? It needs to be withstanding for all the walking and things that she's going to do. And then there's the issue of fixing it to the leg. I might have to consult a few friends. Will she ever walk again?" asked Bright Bill. "What's that?" Mr. Beaver was lost in thought. "Oh, not to worry. You just sit back and leave everything to me. I love a good challenge." Mr. Beaver plunked into the pond and returned a while later, rolling a large section of tree chunk. "Say hello to your new foot," he said, slapping the wood with his tail. "Hello, new foot," said the robot. "That's the spirit. This beauty is from one of the hardest trees I ever chewed, and I just need to make a few modifications." Mr. Beaver placed the piece of wood next to Roz. He squinted, repositioned the piece, and squinted some more. With his claws, I don't know what he's doing. With his claws, he marked different spots on the wood, and then he put his big chompers to work. The beaver chewed and gnawed and carved up that piece of wood, turning it over and over in his paws. Chit-Chat looked down from a branch and chattered through the quiet moments. "This reminds me of the time I saw a fox catch a lizard by the tail, and somehow the lizard's tail fell off, and he got away. And later, I saw that lizard got a new tail, and now Roz is going to get a new foot. Then everything's going to be fine." The wooden foot took shape, and before long, Mr. Beaver was standing beside a beautiful carving that resembled a boot. He tried to slide it over Roz's stump, but the opening was too small, so he scraped out more wood until it was a perfect fit. "Very good," he said, spitting out a wood chip. "My friends should be arriving any minute with all the extra things we'll need." And there they are now. I'd like you all to meet Pumpkin, Lumpkin, and Rumpkin, but I call them the Fuzzy Bandits. 3 fat raccoons shuffled into the garden, dragging a tangle of vines behind them. "Good day," said Bumpkin. "Good day," said Lumpkin. "Good day," said Rumpkin. You might already know this, reader, but raccoons have very nimble hands, and the Fuzzy Bandits use theirs skillfully to tie those vines around the robot's leg and around her new foot. The vines caught nicely to all the dings and dents and scrapes. Once they were tied good and tight, Mr. Beaver threw back his head and hollered, "Trunk tap, we could use your assistance." There was silence, and then 3 quick taps echoed down the forest canopy. "Ah, that'll be him," said Mr. Beaver, smiling. A very handsome woodpecker swooped into the garden. "You called?" came the woodpecker's musical voice. "Indeed I did. Everyone, this is my woodpecking pal, Trunk Tap. Now, Trunky, we need some tree resin, the really sticky stuff. Can you help us out?" "Of course I can," said the woodpecker. "You've got a perfect pine right here." Trunk Tap hopped over to a crusty old pine tree and pecked a few deep holes in the bark. Thick, syrupy resin began oozing down the trunk. Mr. Beaver scooped up handfuls of the resin and smeared it all over the wooden foot and vines until everything was glistening with stickiness. And when the resin dried a short time later, Roz's foot was finished. "This is wonderful," said the robot as she strolled around her garden. "I am as good as new." Mr. Beaver and Trunk Tap and the Fuzzy Bandits went away feeling happy with themselves. They'd done a very nice thing, but it was the first wooden foot any of them had ever made, and within a week, the vines were coming undone, and the foot was sliding loose. So they returned, determined to get it right. They found even harder wood and tougher vines. They experimented with resin, heating it by fire, letting it boil, thicken, until it became an indestructible glue. They kept tinkering with their design until finally, Roz had herself a wooden foot she could rely on. Huzzah! Mr. Beaver rapped his knuckles on the new and improved creation. "I knew we'd get it right." Roz moved closer than before, and she had a slight limp, but she was back to her old self again, and that was a relief to everyone, especially Bright Bill. So I'm thinking, and I even wrote a note in my book, that the beaver, Mr. Beaver, his character trait is that he's so persistent. Persistent, if you guys remember, is that you don't give up. So even though the first foot didn't work, he was relentless and kept trying and kept persisting to make sure that Roz did have a foot that worked. Ooh, there you go. All right. Chapter 49, the Flier. With coaching from his mother, Brightbill was becoming a truly exceptional flyer. He wasn't the biggest or strongest, but he was the smartest. You see, he and his mother had started studying the flying techniques of other birds. They'd sit for hours and watch how hawks and owls and sparrows and vultures moved through the air. They'd go up to the grassy ridge, and Brightbill would practice what he'd learned. Soon he was diving, swooping, and darting around the island. The adult geese frowned at his flying tricks, but the goslings thought he was amazing. Each morning, a gaggle of them would wait on the water for Brightbill to lead them into the sky, and a few hours later, he'd return home to Roz, shaking his tail feathers and honking his latest airborne adventures. Mama! The other goslings didn't know that warm air rises, so I found the updraft, and we spent the afternoon circling around and around, hardly flapping my wings at all. Mama, did you see the lightning storm today? We knew there was trouble when the wind started blowing from the north. So we flew down to some shrubs and waited for the storm to pass. Mama, we just tried to fly in formation. We all took turns at this point, but everyone liked following me the best, so I led most of the time. This is reminding me, I wrote in my book, T to T connection, a text-to-text connection with Calvin from Calvin Can't Fly. Because remember, he was the nerdy bird, so he was smart and was studying about the hurricane, so he warned all the other birds. Even though he wasn't the best flyer, he had all of the smarts to enable him to do it. So that reminds me of Brightbill. Pretty cool. Last chapter for today is chapter 50, the button. And if you're thinking, what button? Think about Roz the robot, the button that we had talked about in our last reading. Brightbill was thinking about the small button on the back of his mother's head. His mother was thinking about it too. They couldn't stop wondering what would happen if the button were pressed. And one day they decided it was time to find out. Roz sat on the floor of the nest. Her son nervously stood on a stone behind her. I'm ready whenever you are, said the robot. Okay, said the gosling. Here we go. Brightbill took a deep breath. Click. Roz's body relaxed. Her quiet whirring slowly stopped, and her eyes faded to black. What do you guys think? Do you think that's it? Do you think the button won't work again if they try to click it on? I'll give you a second to just get your thoughts out. What do you think? Mama, can you hear me? There was no answer. Brightbill waddled around and looked at his mother's face. Her strange spark of light had gone out. The gosling had never felt more alone. He was ready to switch her back on. But what if she didn't wake up? What if she woke up different? The gosling was afraid to press the button. He was afraid not to press the button. He took a deep breath. Click. Roz's body tensed. Her quiet whirring slowly started. Her eyes began to glow. Mama, can you hear me? Hello, I am Rozum, Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz. The robot spoke these words automatically in a language Brightbill didn't understand. His little heart raced as if his worst fears were coming true. But a moment later, her familiar voice returned, and the robot said in the language of animals, Hello, son. How long was I out for? It seemed like only an instant to me. You were out for a few minutes, said the gosling as he hugged his mom, but it seemed like forever to me. So, we're going to pause there. And my question for you today is, what does that last part show us? I'm going to read one more time how Roz interpreted the time where she was shut off, and then how it felt to Brightbill. So she says, Hello, son. How long was I out? It seemed like only an instant to me. You were out for a few minutes, said the gosling as he hugged his mom, but it seemed like forever to me. So what does that show us about how Brightbill feels toward Roz, his mom. How does he feel about her through that little snippet? All right. Ruby has now gone to sleep. It's like her bedtime story. I hope y'all enjoyed today, and I will talk to you next time.